Hi everyone, Ian here from the Media Center, and in today's video I'll be showing you how to set up the Kinefinity Mavo. This is a 6K camera with a super 35mm sensor, which is small, light, easy to use, and packs a lot of punch. It films at a variety of resolutions and high frame rates, and provides an advanced processing architecture which allows for a reliable and powerful encoding system. It also has a robust port connection, high dynamic range, and a low noise threshold, giving the user a complete cinematic solution. In the bag, we provide the Kinefinity Mavo camera body with a 24 1.4 EF lens, a 500 SSD already inserted, the side grip handle, a Zacuto wooden top handle with two NATO rail cold shoe connection points, a carbon fiber rail, and the Kinefinity V-Lock adapter. In addition, you'll also get the KineMon LCD screen with a power cable, two BPU 30 side grip batteries with their charger and cable, the camera Raincover, an SSD card reader, and a spare SSD card, an articulating arm, and a V-Lock charger with two V-Lock batteries. Finally, you'll also be supplied with two types of lens mount adapters, the Kinefinity Enhancer, which converts the Mavo 35 sensor to a full frame sensor, and the KineND, which provides liquid crystal ND filters from 2 to 10 stops. Insert the battery into the side grip, and then attach the V-Lock battery onto the KineBack W. The camera will remain powered and fully functional, even if only one type of battery is used. However, the Mavo will always use the most powerful battery first, and we suggest having the V-Lock attached whenever possible for longer run times. Attach the monitor to one of the 4 cold shoe mounting points mentioned above, either with the ball head or articulating arm. When connecting, ensure the cable is not stretched or crimped, as this could place pressure on the connection points. If you'd prefer to use an Odyssey as a primary monitor, connect it to the Mavo's SDI port and use either the Dpad port on the camera for power or the BPU 30 batteries supplied in the Odyssey bag. The Kinefinity's lens mount isn't native to any one lens or manufacturer. It's a custom design which needs an adapter, and for ours we're using the EF adapters for Canon lenses. The mount has a locking mechanism which acts like a PL mount, and an additional safety lock just beside it. As I mentioned previously, we have two types of adapters, the Kine Enhancer and Kine ND. The ND has a range of 2 to 10 stops, while the Kine Enhancer converts the super 35mm sensor to full frame. This also allows additional light to hit the sensor, improving the low light performance and widening the focal length field of view. When shooting inside or in low light, we'd recommend using the Kine Enhancer, and when shooting outside in brighter conditions, the ND filter would be advised. To attach an adapter, press the black safety button on the camera's mount, then twist the mount handle counterclockwise and unlock and remove the protective cap. Next, align the connector pins of the adapter and the mounting plate. Twist the mount handle clockwise until it locks into place, and you should hear a faint click as the safety mechanism locks. When attaching the lens, unlock the front of the adapter by turning clockwise, then aligning the red and white dot of the lens with the adapter. Turn the adapter attachment anti-clockwise until the lens locks into place. The lock should move at least halfway up the locking line. Do note, check that the lens is properly attached. If this is the case, then the lens shouldn't turn. Only the adapter's locking handle should move. If the lens does turn, it's not connected and will fall off. Turn the camera on by pressing the power icon, and the software will take around 30 to 40 seconds to initiate. Once live, first ensure you format and mount the SSD card. To mount the SSD, press the film strip icon under the SSD drive. This allows you to mount or unmount the card. When mounted, the card will be available to use and record from, and a green LED will be present. When unmounted, the card will be disabled and unavailable to record onto. Do note the card must be unmounted before turning off the camera and transferring files to a computer. When this has occurred, an orange LED will be present. To format the card, press the configuration button on either the side handle or on the main camera body, then use the side dial to navigate to shooting, and select Format SSD. To remove the SSD drive, ensure the SSD is unmounted, the camera is turned off, and then lift up the locking tab and pull the drive out. The kit comes with a dedicated SSD reader for transferring footage onto a computer. Across the live view page, you'll have access to a number of core parameters, which we'll cover throughout the video. And these can be altered across the quick function dials on the handle and the main body, while additional settings can be adjusted via the internal menu. The handle and main body dials mimic one another, so you can alter the same settings from two different locations. Each button has two settings mapped to it, and pressing once enables the first parameter, then an additional press enables the second option. To adjust the ISO, press left on the handle D-pad or number 2 on the main body. Once this area becomes highlighted on the main view, rotate the inner D-pad dial or the outer dial on the main body to adjust the parameter. To confirm a change, press the central button on either the D-pad or the dial. The native ISO for the Kinefinity Mavo is 800, and this holds around 14 stops of dynamic range. At alternate ISOs, up to about 1600, the noise will increase but will be minimal. Up to ISO 2560 in Super 35 mode, the noise ratio will be manageable as long as you expose the important areas of your frame above 50% on a waveform or on the false color meter. Raising the ISO higher than this will result in a lot more noise appearing and dynamic range decreasing. When the left D-pad or button 2 is pressed for a second time, you'll navigate to the LUT window, which allows you to adjust the picture profile overlay. In this area, you'll have two options, KC Neutral or KineLog. KineLog represents the native image, which is a flat desaturated log format, whereas KC Neutral provides a Rec. 709 overlay. The overlay is designed to provide a guide for what the final image will look like once in post-production, and provides more contrast when focusing and showing the image to a director or client. Remember, this is just an overlay, so the LUT won't burn into the image. You'll always be recording in the flat log profile. KineLog holds similar characteristics to REC-Log and Kodak's Cineon log, and as such, Kinefinity recommends having important areas of the frame sitting above 50% on the IRE scale, which would suggest middle grey is around 50%. Due to this, I try and expose KineLog at the following values: 18% middle grey between 45 to 50%, skin tones at around 50 to 60, and the white point at about 66 to 71%. Do note that monitoring aids such as false color and zebras will react to how the image is being presented on the monitor, i.e. if the monitor has a neutral LUT applied, the false color and zebras will base their exposure values on the contrast and brightness levels of the Rec. 709 LUT. If the LUT is disabled, it will base the values on the log file. If you decide to shoot with the neutral LUT applied in camera, once copied onto a computer, the LUT will appear as a separate file in your folder structure. This can then be applied in your dedicated editing software such as Lumetri or the DaVinci Color Panel. This is brilliant because it means you can color correct the log file straight away with the LUT that holds the accurate metadata for that specific shot. To adjust the shutter speed and film presets, press up on the D-pad or number 1 on the body. The shutter speed will allow you to alter how much light is entering the camera, and this will adjust how much motion blur is visible. Lower values will create more motion blur, and higher values will create less. Selecting a shutter which is double the frame rate is the industry standard and will provide the most natural motion blur. With presets, you can program up to 8 custom settings which automatically change your frame mode, resolution, frame per second, shutter, and recording codec. This essentially provides a custom setup for different types of shooting environments. To save a preset, once you've set the chosen camera parameters, navigate to the menu button, which is available on both the handle and main body, choose shooting, save preset, and choose a number. Once locked in, pressing the preset will remap the camera's parameters. To adjust your white balance, press down on the D-pad or select number 4 on the main body. As with all other settings, use the inner D-pad on the side handle or the outer dial on the main body to alter these values. You'll be able to adjust the white balance in large or small increments, depending on how you've set this in the main menu. To adjust this, go into the menu interface, navigate to page 2, live view, and color temp. From here, you'll be able to choose full or simple. Full allows you to choose a color temperature in incremental values, while simple allows you to only select the most common Kelvin values. These mean 2800, 3200, 43, 55, 56, or 64. To perform a manual white balance using a white or grey card, navigate to 1/user in the white balance section, then navigate to your menu, page 2, live view, and choose custom white balance. Entering this mode prompts you to place a grey or white balance card in front of the screen. Fill the scene as much as possible, then choose OK to set. A second press of the white balance button allows you to adjust the green and magenta tint of the white balance, providing additional refinement. 0 is a default, with +1 providing the maximum green tint and -1 giving the maximum magenta tint. To adjust the ND filter or frame rate, press right on the D-pad or select number 3. Following this, the ND adjustment will only be made available if you have the dedicated KineND adapter attached. The ND will begin at 2 stops, and this can be manually dialed up to 10 stops. Do make sure this is at the lowest ND or replaced with a Kine enhancer when shooting indoors, or you may need to unnecessarily increase your ISO. A second press of the D-pad button, or button 3, allows you to adjust the frame rate. These values available will all depend on which resolution you've selected. Some resolutions such as 6K are limited to 50 frames per second, while others such as 2K and 1080p can go much higher. The frame rate you select will be entirely dependent on the type of image you're trying to create. If you wish to shoot at a UK standard frame rate, and you don't require slow motion, shoot at 25. If you want the classic cinema frame rate, shoot at 24. And if you require slow motion, then 50, 100, 120, 180, 240, and numbers in between are commonly used. To adjust the camera's aperture, rotate the inner D-pad or the outer dial on the main body when no other option is selected. Pressing the center button on either dial will enable and disable a waveform monitor. However, I'd recommend using the Odyssey's built-in monitoring aids, as they're easier and clearer to read. To help gauge critical focus, press the magnification button, available on both the side grip or main body. This digital overlay can be used at 100, 200 or 800% magnification. These settings are available in the Menu Live View Magnify tab. I'd recommend turning 800% off as the magnification quality is quite poor at this range, but keep 100 and 200% on. The Kinefinity's native monitor can enable peaking from a dedicated button, and this creates a black and white overlay and adds red peaking lines. This monitor is also where you'll be able to access the native false color chart, and a visual scale is available on screen showing which color represents which brightness range. Remember, the magnification, false color, waveforms, and zebras, among many other monitoring aids, can all be utilized via our external Odyssey monitors if you prefer this. Additional functionality which is available across the Kinefinity includes the following. The sleep button places the camera into a low power mode to save battery, and when enabled, the power button will flash green and red. To disable the sleep mode and re-engage the camera, press the power button. 2 record buttons are also available, one on the side grip and one on the body, and to access recordings, press the playback button. From here, you can play back all resolutions. For example, if you're shooting in 6K, you can still play back a 4K clip. The menu button also allows you to play and pause recordings, while the left and down arrow or the number 2 and number 4 buttons move between the clips. Finally, the audio button opens the audio interface, which we'll cover later in the video. To access the internal menu interface, press the screwdriver and wrench button. From here, you can configure 6 different pages. Shooting, Live View, Settings, LUT, Sync, and System. Within Shooting, you have the following options. For default codec, you can choose to capture in ProRes 422, ProRes HQ, or 444. 444 carries even more color depth from the sensor in comparison to 422, providing even greater flexibility in post, especially for chroma keying and VFX work, but these will be significantly larger in file size. 422 HQ is a good choice if minimal VFX work is required. Slate allows you to input metadata for your scene, however this is quite time consuming and clunky to set, so I'd suggest using a traditional clapperboard on set. Custom Sensor FPS allows you to set non-standard personalized frame rates, which will then appear in the frame per second window on the live view. Project FPS references the timeline playback that you'll be using in your editing software, i.e. Premiere Pro, Avid, or DaVinci. Most commonly, this will be 25 frames per second. If you want regular motion, the project FPS should be identical to the sensor FPS, which is located in the top left corner of your monitor's display window. The sensor frame rate is available from button 2 or clicking left on the Dpad twice. Remember, the sensor FPS is the frame rate you're capturing in within the camera, and the project FPS is what it's been remapped to. For example, if the sensor is set to 25 and the project is set to 25, the footage will be captured and played back at a normal speed. The sensor icon will also appear as grey on the main page. If, however, you change the sensor to 50 and keep the project as 25, the file will be captured at 50 frames and slowed down to 25 frames, baking in slow motion. When the sensor and project don't match, the live view icon will appear as yellow. Project blanking allows you to enable various aspect ratios: 2.4:1 for cinema widescreen, 2/1 for Univision, 17:9 for cinema DCI 4K, 16:9 for HD, 4:3 for standard def, 1:1 for Instagram, and 9/16 and 1/2 for vertical formats. Format SSD obviously formats the media cards, and the video image format is where you can choose the camera's sensor crop, ranging between Super 35, Micro Four Thirds, Super 16, and 60mm crop. Personally, I prefer shooting in the Super 35 mode and at larger resolutions because the image generally appears cleaner, sharper, and you'll have more manipulation across your timeline for resizing if you're converting to a smaller timeline resolution. But the options are here should you wish to choose something different. When different image formats are selected, you'll be given different resolution sizes in the record resolution window. In Super 35, you'll have 6K, 5K, 4K, and 3K at different aspect ratios. In Micro Four Thirds, you'll have a variety of 4K, Ultra HD, and DCI 4K. Super 16 will allow 3K recording, and 16mm will provide 2K and 1080p resolutions. Once a resolution is chosen, you'll alter the frame rate via the Live View page using button 3 or pressing right on the Dpad. Personally, I find the following to be the best resolutions. For regular frame rates up to 50 frames per second, I'd recommend Super 35 mode in 6K, 5K or 4K. If you decide to shoot in the Micro Four Thirds crop, our recommended choices would be DCI 4K, so 4096 by 2160, or 4K Ultra HD 3840 by 2160. Following this, sensitivity mode allows you to shoot with ISO or EI, which is exposure index mode, and we recommend staying in ISO mode. ISO highlight stops shows how many stops are navigated towards the highlights. Kinefinity recommends 4.3. This allows for a larger dynamic range while retaining a low noise floor. Going higher, for example to 6.3, may allow for more range in the highlights, but this will increase the potential for noise in the shadows. Finally, Save as Preset allows you to save the current camera settings as a preset, accessible via the camera's function buttons. Next, in the Live View page, this is where we can set our custom white balance, which we've already discussed and showed earlier in the video. And below this, you can also adjust a number of monitoring aids. Within the Guide tab, you can enable a rule of third grid line among a number of color bars and crosshairs. After this, the waveform can be set as two types, log or LUT, and these can be shown as full or short. Log references the light values of the original log image, while LUT references the LUT overlay brightness levels. If you're filming with the KC neutral LUT applied in camera, use LUT. However, if you're viewing the frame in the native KineLog format, use log. Full means the waveform will be spread across the bottom of the entire monitor, while short will place it in the bottom right-hand corner of the monitor. Personally, I prefer setting this as short. Within the zebras window, you have a number of percentage values ranging from 12 to 99%. However, I'd use the Odyssey zebras whenever possible. If you do choose to use the Mavo zebras, then 50% will help you determine the middle grey exposure, whereas 75 to 85% will help you determine the white point. For magnify, as already recommended, you should have 100 and 200% turned on and 800% turned off. After this, you also have an anamorphic lens option. Now, if you decide to rent or buy your own anamorphic equipment, this would be the setting you'd enable to de-squeeze and view the image correctly. However, currently, we don't supply any anamorphic lenses or adapters in the resource center. So unless you're using your own, I'd recommend keeping this disabled. For video output, this refers to the refresh rate of your monitor, and it has nothing to do with the recording, project, or sensor FPS. If you see any monitor lag, try setting this as 60. For shutter mode, you can switch between time or angle. If you choose angle, it will present your shutter speed in degrees. Finally, you can select the color temperature as previously discussed, and this can be set as either full, allowing you to choose a color temperature in incremental values, or simple, which allows you to select only the most common Kelvin values. Following this, in the SSD window, you can choose to view the hard drive's remaining time or remaining capacity, and this will be displayed in the lower left-hand corner of the page. Finally, you can enable and disable the digital horizon, which is shown at the bottom of the screen. This uses a little square box to indicate how the horizon is positioned. When perfectly level, the box will turn from white to green. Following on from the live view page, we also have settings. For active mount, set this to enhanced. If this is disabled, you'll be unable to change the aperture on electronic lenses. In contrast, if you use a manual cine prime, disable the active mount. For fan speed, I normally set this at around 40 to 50%, and in addition, fan stop should be set to while recording to ensure microphones can capture the best sound possible. From here, you can also enable the Wi-Fi power for a remote app, which is available on the Apple App Store, turn footage preview on or off, and set and enable timecode functionality for either record run or free run. Following this, an ND adjust parameter is available with 0.3, meaning you'll alter the ND in one-stop increments, or 0.03, which will allow you to alter the range in much smaller increments. Following this, if you prefer all of your settings to be displayed on screen, select Brief in the main screen tab, while for a clear view, select Clean. For SSD file system, you can choose to capture across the HFS system, optimized for Mac, or the NTFS system, which is optimized for PCs. The choice you make here will be dependent on which type of computer you choose to edit on. I normally edit on a Mac, so I keep this as HFS. Finally, I normally keep clip end as loop as opposed to pause, meaning your recorded media will just continuously loop when watching it on playback. And for power threshold, which provides a warning level for when the camera's battery is low, I normally set this anywhere between 12.70 and 13.10. The camera will automatically power down at the chosen voltage if low voltage shutdown is turned on. Page 4 allows you to load and remove custom LUTs in the camera. To load a LUT, connect a FAT32 formatted USB stick into the USB port of the camera body with the chosen LUTs copied onto it. Whenever you apply LUTs, it's important you only use ones which have been specifically designed for that type of log profile. If you use a LUT which doesn't correlate, the contrast, brightness, and saturation may appear incorrect. Across the sync window, you can enable the tally lamp and turn on an audible cue for when recording is initiated. Finally, across the system window, you can set the language, change the date and time, calibrate the digital horizon level if it decides to drift off axis, enable a factory reset, which restores the camera to its default factory settings, import and export user settings, and view firmware information. Again, to import settings, you'll need a FAT32 USB stick inserted. This would allow the user to copy their specific settings onto an external stick and then re-import those parameters at a later date. This can obviously be very useful in a student environment when the equipment is being shared by a lot of people and settings are being changed regularly. Finally, the Kinefinity Mavo has two XLR inputs and a small internal microphone, and audio adjustments can be made by pressing the audio button. Pressing once allows you to increase or decrease the levels of whichever audio input is selected, and pressing twice takes you into the audio interface where you can alter additional sound information. The playback level, dB, adjusts the headphone volume, and the mic audio level refers to the internal microphone, which can be set between 0 and 49.5 dB. This internal mic is very poor and should only be used as scratch audio. If Kine audio is turned on, this will disable the internal mic and engage the XLR ports. This should be turned on when connecting to an external microphone. If the microphone doesn't have built-in power, then ensure Phantom 48 volt is turned on. When using just one microphone, an XLR input, choose the same channel number destination. For example, if the microphone is seated into the channel 1 XLR input, ensure channel 1 is selected in the audio window. This will create a mono track which is centered. If two microphones are inputted, choose channel 1/channel 2. This will create a stereo track in which one microphone will be captured across the left channel and the second microphone will be captured across the right. The Kine audio level alters the volume of the external microphones. For dialogue, you'll want the levels being displayed at around -12 dB, which will be approximately 3/4 of the way up the audio scale, visible in the bottom right-hand corner of your monitor. In addition to the audio being baked directly into the video, the Kinefinity also captures these audio tracks as separate WAV files, which can be advantageous for greater sound manipulation. When one microphone is being used, the left and right WAV channels will be a mimic of one another, creating a balanced track. Alternatively, if two microphones have been inputted, the WAV file will contain channel 1's audio, and the second WAV file will contain channel 2's audio. Finally, the Kinefinity comes with a Raincover, which is relatively straightforward and easy to attach. Ensure all zips and Velcro attachment points are loose, and bring the cover over and across the top of the camera body. It has 3 see-through screens, and these allow the user to adjust camera functionality across the monitor, side handle, and main body. Once seated, ensure the zips and Velcro are fastened back down to reduce potential damage from bad weather. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions regarding any of the information I've talked about in this video, please don't hesitate to come and see any of the technicians in the media center. Until next time, keep shooting, keep being creative, and we'll see you soon.